Good morning, friends. Welcome to another live stream here with Buddhist Insights at Empty Cloud Monastery. We're doing our winter retreat. So, this is right in the middle of the winter retreat after 1 month of seclusion. So, it's good to see you all virtually after so long. Hello to Geeta. Yes, my retreat is going really well. Thank you for asking, or for wishing, actually. And hello to Michael. Good morning to you as well. And good morning to Michael the second. So Budaruchi's real name is also Michael, but we also have Michael Rasmussen. And hi, Kyle. Good to see you, as well as Cow's our friend. Welcome, friends. So there is a little link to a sutta posted in the live chat. So you're welcome to open that. It's a very short sutta. And Elaine says, "How fortunate for us to have you with us today." Oh, you're so very kind, Elaine. We love you too. Everyone here. I say we, not as a plurale majestatis, not as referred to me, but as everyone here at the monastery. All right. So we can start our morning. Oh, hello, Edward. So many good friends. Okay. So we can start our morning, as I was saying, by paying homage to our original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namassami. So the topic, actually, we're going to do the same topic for the next 6 meetings that we're going to have this week. So the subject matter that we're going to delve into is understanding, making sense of our sort of emotional state, making sense of the mind, making sense with what we're actually working with here. What is the job that we're undertaking with Buddhist practice? And what is actually the Buddha recommending to do in order to develop what we perhaps sometimes call in the West emotional intelligence. So we're very skilled at developing emotional depression of different sorts, but very difficult for us to really develop emotional intelligence. So really understanding our experience. And of course, as we all know, the first noble truth that the Buddha shares with us is the noble truth of suffering. So that is fundamentally what propels each one of us to, well, even search for any path to begin with, but then, to find the path and decide to pursue the path. And that's, this consideration is actually very important. The Buddha says that since, life has this quality of suffering to it, this quality of dukkha, there is dukkha in our experience as living beings. Whenever we experience different types of dukkha, we are going to have two sort of results. Either one, we're going to get into deep confusion, which is basically what we've been doing up until finding the path. And the second sort of reaction to suffering is to go in a search, like venture, look for answers, look for someone, a spiritual practitioner, who can um, help us in alleviating our suffering. And personally, I've done both. And I'm still actually personally doing both. That's the process of being on the path of awakening. So even though we have found perhaps the path that alleviates, and it's alleviating our suffering, so we're really, quite convinced. I definitely am. I'm wearing robes. I'm pretty sure that this path works. Yet, a lot of times, inevitably, um, I go back to um, all these unwholesome habits of the mind that have been built, um, been nourished, unfortunately, for countless lifetimes. Actually, definitely for a lot of time in this current life that I have memory of. But nobody taught me in this life a lot of the unwholesome habits that my mind veers towards. Nobody, my parents didn't put much effort in instilling those sort of tendencies of mine. So clearly there is some past karma. Clearly it's not something that just happened 30 years ago or so, but it's been going on for quite some time. So inevitably there is that going back to either thinking, seeing the world in a particular way, or reacting or behaving, interacting actually most of the time with others in unskillful um, ways. So going back to the patterns that lead to suffering fundamentally, and that's where confusion arises. And in those moments, it's important to go back to what the Buddha says. So refresh in our mind what it is that we're doing here. But first of all, the Buddha encourages us to be quite clear in the fact that there are different sort of shades of suffering. In the Anguttara Nikaya that I've been reading nonstop for the whole month of January, I was either meditating or reading the suttas, in particular the Anguttara Nikaya. It was my book of January, I decided. So yeah, so the Buddha says there is extreme suffering, there is slight suffering, there is suffering that fades away slowly, there is suffering that fades away quickly. This is called the diversity of suffering. So something that perhaps seems obvious, but in reality it's not. We tend to be very confused in even the most obvious, so to speak, aspect of our experience. And that's because we're not paying attention to it. Most of the time, we're only paying attention when it's extremely sort of unbearable. If we're experiencing loss, so if someone dies that we care about, or if someone that we care about gets sick, or if we get sick, like we're veering towards intense that intense types of suffering. So extreme suffering, as the Buddha says, that fades away slowly. And while we're experiencing it, in fact, it seems somewhat eternal. It doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. If we're experiencing extreme depression, for example, it's very difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel, isn't it? And that's because we haven't cultivated the understanding that it is a type of suffering that is extreme and that fades away slowly. And conversely, all the different types of small, slight sufferings that we're experiencing in every moment, we overlook them because they fade away quickly. So the reason why the Buddha encourages us to make this sort of preliminary reflection is to encourage us to start paying attention fully in every single moment. What is our experience like? What type of suffering are we experiencing? And what are preconceived ideas on suffering? So, do we think that suffering is only getting what we don't want? Or is there any type of suffering that we're experiencing when we get things that we want? And we'll talk about perhaps this more in our next meetings in the next couple of days. But this morning, what I wanted to sort of discuss with you all was this little sutta, short sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 695, the one that you can find the link in the live chat. And I'll read it out loud now. The Buddha says, monks, there are these 6 cases of incapability. What 6? One accomplished in view is incapable of resorting to the view that pleasure and pain are made by oneself. 2, incapable of resorting to the view that pleasure and pain are made by another. 3, incapable of resorting to the view that pleasure and pain are both made by oneself and made by another. 4, incapable of resorting to the view that pleasure and pain are not made by oneself but have arisen fortuitously. 5, incapable of resorting to the view that pleasure and pain are not made by another but have arisen fortuitously. And 6, incapable of resorting to the view that pleasure and pain are made neither by oneself nor by another but have arisen fortuitously. For what reason? Because the person accomplished in view has clearly seen causation and causally arisen phenomena. These are the 6 cases of incapability. So much Dhammasuka. I love this this sutta. I love all the suttas. I always say that whenever we whenever we read it out loud or whenever I read it by myself. I'm like, Buddha Dhamma and Sangha. So the reason why I'm bringing this sutta up with you all is to analyze fundamentally where we think that suffering comes from. So we all know the second noble truth, where the Buddha says that the cause of suffering is desire. Yet, whenever we're experiencing suffering, inevitably the mind finds a different cause of suffering. And so either we start thinking that we have caused this suffering for ourselves, so this experience, so it's us, it's all made by us. So in this moment, then I can decide, just like I made this anxiety arise in my mind, in this moment, I can decide for it to disappear. Just how I am the maker of this depression, I can destroy this depression. So we're like, depression, stop, depression, leave me alone, anxiety, disintegrate. But very unsuccessful. No matter how hard in that moment we try for it to disappear, to disintegrate, it's still there. And actually, the more we try to eliminate that suffering in this way, the more it fades slowly. It fades eventually, but it takes a longer time. And then if we're not into blaming ourselves, then we're like, well, then it's someone else's fault. It must be either my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my trans friend. my parents, my children, my coworkers, the government, the president, whoever it is. So it's external. If those people hadn't done such and such thing, then I wouldn't be experiencing what I'm experiencing. So that's a second way through which we are looking for a cause of suffering intuitively. The third one is we're like, okay, maybe it's not really made by me and not entirely made by me and not entirely made by others. It's like a mix of the two. The other view is that, okay, it's not made by myself, others, or a mix of the two, but it's actually just random. It randomly arises. And that's, of course, he adds three examples. He elaborates on that based on the previous three, but fundamentally, that's the, you can say, you can sum it up in all under the same umbrella. So, this is kind of like the view that arises through that confusion. Well, actually, all four of these ways of looking at the world, or six, as the Buddha is actually presenting, are arise from confusion. But I think the last one is the even most confused of all of them, creates more and more confusion, more and more suffering. And that's because it's so difficult. That was my sort of experience, actually, of the world prior to Buddhist practice. I had sometimes I would have these strong emotions that would appear out of nowhere. Depression, for example. And I was like, this is just random. I have no idea why it's here. I just know it's here and it's intolerable. Or just looking at the insane amount of suffering in the world that would bring incredible depression to my mind. And seeing how everything looked so erratic, so random, how some people were coming from privileged existences and some others were in extremely unprivileged um, situations where even their bare needs, food, shelter, were not taken care of. The first time I saw someone actually eating cement to not feel the hunger pangs in their stomach when I was traveling in India was heartbreaking for me. I could not understand how, how all this suffering could be in this world, and why this person, like many others, were having to resort to trick the stomach into thinking that it was full when there was so much food waste in lots of places where I was staying at within India, or where I was coming from Italy. So, all of this is the wrong view that we're currently experiencing. And to one degree or the other, our mind is always going to fall back to this line of thinking. And the reason why I picked this sutta in particular, it's because it actually highlights how one is incapable of resorting to such views when one has when one actually enters the stream, so becomes a stream enter. And what I find really beautiful is how the Buddha gives a very like pinpoints the reason so clearly. So why is this person not having this array of views? Very simply because the person accomplished in view has clearly seen causation and causally, arisen phenomena, not casually, but causally arisen phenomena. So this, in essence, it's what the Buddha's teachings are. It's not some weird, mystical um, discipline, but rather it's something extremely precious. It's a teaching of causality. It's a teaching of cause and effect that pierces through our delusion, and we stop creating stories about our experience, creating stories of why we're suffering or why other people are suffering, but rather we start connecting the dots and fully understanding that whenever we put these conditions in place, inevitably we'll get this result. And if we want a different result, then we better put different conditions in place. But it's very important to understand this first and foremost. So, to acknowledge the wrong view, the way that we've been going about in the world up until now, and the reasons, the causes of suffering that will inevitably arise in our mind, and to put effort in recollecting the actual cause of suffering that the Buddha points us to, and to do the work of understanding how it applies in our experience. So, not trying to alter the Dharma, not trying to get the Dharma to fit our pre existing views, but rather altering our views in order to match them with the Dhamma, but not taking them even here just at face value, but really investigating it. That's one of the factors of enlightenment, is investigating the Dhamma. So we want to fully understand what kind of work we're doing. So once again, the Buddha is a very practical, compassionate teacher. So over the course of the next few days, we're going to see what kind of work are we going to actually have to do in order to understand how our mind works. But I wanted to share once again this morning these preliminary words so that we're all on the same page and we're all, understanding what type of work we need to be doing. So that's all I have to say for this morning. And now it's your time to ask questions if you have any, or comments, or anything that pops in your mind. All right. And we have a few other friends that have joined us in the meanwhile. Hello, Rich. Good to see you, our neighbor. And hello to Sonia, and hello to Priyakant. So feel free to type in anything that comes to mind. Otherwise, we can also do a little bit of meditation if people don't have any questions. And Geeta is saying, Ayya, did you receive the 3 chanting books? Yes, we did. I did not know that it was from you because there was no note. So Anumadana Sadhu, thank you. Oh, that is so very kind. And Michael said, off topic perhaps, a monk once suggested to me that ... See? We have a bit of suspense. Oh, hello, Giovanna Guarino. I wonder if you're from Italy or you're Italian American. And hello, Jim. So Michael says, a monk once suggested to me that in India, when we give alms to the poor at Buddhist sites, we might dot dot dot. There's a lot of suspense this morning. We might be interfering with their karma, for example, the results. Well, I don't particularly like to address what other monks are saying because they might be enlightened beings. So then it would be really bad karma that that I actually say the opposite and and then put you in the wrong direction. So I wasn't there when you had this conversation with the monk, and right now you're not here present, so I can't really have a conversation on this. But what I will share about karma is that there is no such thing as interfering with other people's karma. So fundamentally, karma is an intentional action that we do, and we're going to reap the results of that action. So that's the only thing that we should worry about, our intention there. What is our intention, but also being 360 degree about it. So not only, giving out of the sort of will of wanting to feel good, or just because we're there, we're like, okay, there's this mendicant, so I'm going to give them their food, and so then I'm going to feel good about myself because I've done this action. There is something wholesome, of course, there that is worth treasuring. But having a sort of better picture of the situation. So saying, is this actually the most appropriate thing to do? Or are there other ways through which I can help this person? Which is perhaps both actually giving them food in this moment, here and now, but then also perhaps helping in creating the conditions for this person to not constantly be in that situation of indigence. And I'm not the best person to give suggestions in that. There are other people who are actually on the field that do this work 24/7, who have a better understanding of the problematics, of the issues, of the situation. But this was my experience also in India. As soon as I went there, I was the first time I went there, I was overwhelmed by the amount of suffering that I was seeing everywhere, and I was just giving any type of money that I had. Didn't have that much money, but whatever I had, I was just giving it away, giving it to whoever was there. And that's definitely not something unwholesome, but some people there pointed out how that could create other problematics that wasn't something that I was seeing in that moment because I wasn't fully aware of the conditions there. Um, so yeah, one needs to also be a little bit humble and ask questions. Go to people who help and go, hey, I would really like to help. How can I help? How can this be the most skillful? So this is what I want to share right now. So Michael says, don't believe that. What do you think? Yeah, I don't. Once again, I'm not a big fan of. I think that a lot of times, if we get into that mind state of not interfering with others, karma is actually a justification, really, that we use for ourselves in order not to do anything about it. So then we're actually doing bad karma because we're making bad karma because we're creating the karma of indifference, of not caring, and go, oh well, it's just their karma, so they can deal with this suffering. No, that's not skillful. And Giovanna says, I'm an Italian in the UK. Great. I used to be in the UK there too. I'm smiling because your name is my lay name. um, and Kauser friend says, my cat keeps rubbing his head against my copy of the Anguttara Nikaya. He must like the Dhamma a lot. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yes, our monastic cat, monastery cat Stan, loves to sit on any copy, any chanting sheet, anything Dhamma. He manages to find only Dhamma books where to sit on. Kind of disrespectful, but but we like to think that it's actually he's trying to purify his karma. And Michael says, if I help somebody suffering, I am the vehicle, part of the result of their karma. This is if they are hungry, that might be the result of karma. If I provide food, that becomes the result of their past karma as well. So once again, don't worry about other people's karma. Worry about yours. So we can start. Actually, that is one of the things, the imponderables that the Buddha encourages to stop thinking about, which is, and I think when he talks about it in the results of karma, of not to obsess about it, is exactly in this context. So when we start thinking, oh, why does such and such person, why are they experiencing X, Y, and Z thing? They must have done, I don't know what in their past lives, or if we're, the recipients of such karma, then we start creating so many stories, so much delusion. And that is unskillful, and our head is going to explode. So don't worry about it. It's very easy. The Buddhist path is very easy. Do wholesome actions. Don't do unwholesome actions. Purify the mind of the wholesome and do not cultivate the unwholesome. Very, very simple. Can't go wrong with that. And Gita says, thank you for sharing. You're very welcome. And Yana says, hi, I'm just starting my Buddhist practice and I'm looking forward to learning from this group. Well, welcome to Diana or Diana. And we're all starting our Buddhist practice. I mean, really, until we attain a level of awakening, we're always just starting. So we're always fundamentally removing our wrong view and getting on the right track. And Edward says, I'm currently dealing with a very difficult person at work. I'm looking forward to this week for greater insights worth working with my mind in dealing with this. Yeah, honestly, we're constantly dealing with difficult people. First one is actually ourselves. Very difficult person. I had to deal with myself the whole month of January. There was no way out of myself because we were on silent retreat. I was trying so many ways, to stop dealing with myself. And then at some point, I have to just admit, wow, she's really annoying, and I just have to deal with her. And that's just part of practice. So whether it's ourselves or other people, we're always going to be triggered until we attain some level of awakening. So this is to, keep in mind, even in the most wonderful settings. I have to say that I'm in one of the most wonderful setups here at Empty Cloud Monastery. All the people that I'm living with are lovely and kind and committed to awakening, committed to this practice. Yet I can be extremely annoying to them, and they can be extremely annoying to me. And for silly things. Yesterday I couldn't find a tool in the kitchen. And I was just like, oh, where's this tool? Going up and down. Maybe they actually put it in the pantry. Maybe they put it in the water station. Oh, when I was living by myself, when I was a lay person, I was the only one here in the kitchen. I always knew where the things were. I didn't have to waste. It takes more more time to look for a tool than actually use the tool. The mind can go and create so much suffering. So I was like, oh, stop, silly. You were a lot full. You had a lot more suffering in the mind when you actually knew where the tools were in the kitchen and you were, your own home rather than a monastery. So clearly, that's not the cause of suffering. Once again, and getting back to the sutta that we just read. So again, the suffering is not. They didn't create my suffering. And I didn't create my suffering either. It's just causes and conditions that are put there that then have that result. So, but yes, we are going to go, we are going to explore how to deal with difficult people in the next couple of days. Michael says, beginner's mind. Yes, we should always have a beginner's mind, always erase our preconceived ideas or question them at least and make the effort of really fully trying to understand what the Buddha is telling us. And Juni says, when I visited Nepal and Sri Lanka, I felt the same exact way. You want to help everyone, even the animals. I was carrying bags of food as I walked around, feeding all the strays and giving cookies and treats to the kids. Oh, that's very sweet and cute. Yeah, I mean, we should always want to help everyone, even the animals, and that includes ourselves. So we're also cute little animal or annoying little animal. So yeah, we should always have that, generate that wholesome mind state, but not only when we go to Sri Lanka or to Nepal or to any place, other place in the world, but really in our backyard, really in our home, really in our place. How can we be of help to each single person that we share space with, or that we're responsible for, or that we're not responsible for, but that we interact with? And if we don't interact with, then let's try to interact with them. So expanding our field of compassion, expanding our field of generosity, that should always be paramount practice. Oh, and Gita is saying, have we lost sound? I'm not sure. Can you still hear me? Yes, Priyakant says that you can still hear. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Okay, nobody else is having technical problems, only Gita. All right, so maybe we can do a little bit of meditation. That's always a good idea. So we can get in a comfortable position if you're not in a comfortable position already. Make sure your back is upright. You can close your eyes. And contemplate on the words of the Buddha that we just read. The person accomplished in view has clearly seen causation and causally arisen phenomena. All right. So this is all for this morning. Thank you so much for joining us and practicing together. So we will keep on exploring this topic for the next couple of meetings up until Friday. So you can join us again at 7:30 p.m. New York City time today, and tomorrow again at 8 a.m. and again in the evening on Thursday, then morning Friday, and evening. And we'll delve into this topic a little bit more. All right, so we can end the day with three sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you be well, happy, and peaceful.